We are in the zone today with Joey Bidner and Jyll Saskin Gales. Hey, Joey, how are you?
Hey, Jill. Good to be here. I'm doing well.
Yeah, so for those who are watching this live or listening later, Joey and I have seen each other on LinkedIn before. We've been in the DMs, but this is our first time actually meeting face to face, and we're sharing that with all of you. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, and I'm your biggest fan, so this is a real pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Please, I'm a big fan of your podcast. So for folks who may not be familiar, Joey, why don't I let you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I am a good old-fashioned PPC freelancer, an independent ads manager, and yeah, I have a little podcast called the Indie PPC Podcast. It's relatively new and having a lot of fun with it, but yeah, I'm just a boots on the ground ads manager. So
I love it. I love it. And for those who may not know me, I'm Jyll Saskin Gales, and I'm a Google Ads coach. So I teach business owners, marketers, agencies, freelancers how to get better results from Google Ads. And I am, I think, one of the very first listeners of your podcast. As
I
a
think
Google
so.
Ads podcaster, I get so excited when more people who know what they're talking about join the space. And so I will definitely categorize you as someone who knows what you're talking about. And the Indie PPC podcast, it's on YouTube, it's on all the podcast apps, right?
Yeah, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the whole shebang.
All that good stuff. I learned about Microsoft ads from you. You had some good merchant center stuff recently. That's another area I've been looking to grow on. So folks should definitely tune into that. So I guess maybe we'll start there, Joey. It's coming up on Black Friday, Cyber Monday, holiday
Yeah.
season. So with your clients, what's sort of top of mind for you these days in Google Ads?
Yeah, the time before Black Friday is really where I spend the majority of my time with, my head in the sand doing the work. I find actually Black Friday itself, like the time of the sale, is when it's a little bit, I personally find it to be almost a little bit more hands off because the work is really done before. So this time of year, I am really planning how I'm doing my scaling because I typically scale before the sale. I like to have the mindset of priming the pipeline of new customers that you're then going to offer the promotion to, right? Not necessarily cranking up spend at the time of sale. So what that means is I'm spending this time analyzing last year's data. Did we scale too much or not enough? Was there more opportunity? What was the relationship from spend to return like last year? So right now I am deep in analysis of last year and preparing all of the tools to get the messaging out, reminding my clients to get me creative. It's a fun time of year. Yeah.
The all important creative. I love that scale before the sale because it's so true. And it's something we all
Yeah.
say a lot, but actually doing it can be tricky. And so I notice with
Mhm.
some of my really small business, e-com clients, something that a few of them have been doing this year that we've talked about for a few years and they're finally doing is we launched a demand gen campaign in October. You know what I mean?
Smart.
Instead of the week before Black Friday with a very narrow audience, not feed based. I'll be curious to get your take on that in a sec. But with
Mhm.
demand gen, I actually prefer to do it without a product feed rather than with a
Mhm.
product feed, and just trying to build awareness among that really targeted audience so that when the sales and everything inundates them, they have more awareness by the time November comes. Are you someone who's been using demand gen, or do you like display? What's your sort of complement to search and shopping that you like to use?
Yeah, I've definitely been using demand gen a lot. And to be honest, I've also been using it for remarketing a lot. It's because I love that you can actually do targeted audiences as opposed to it's not like PMAX where it's just all signals. So it's taken over my remarketing campaigns, but for general awareness, yeah, I've been loving it. I think that's really smart to use it as that funnel um, priming strategy. And I also, to be honest, have been doing less feed based demand gen campaigns. When it
Yeah.
comes to promoting the products with the feed, I just like to go for shopping. Standard shopping, I'm a bit of a traditionalist there. So most of my pre sale scale will literally just be taking a lot of the basic campaigns I have and just ticking up their spend as much as the client is comfortable. Now, a lot of that also has to do with gauging the client's level of risk tolerance. I never like to suggest, "Oh yeah, you should double your spend right now." It's like, "No, how comfortable are you spending before the sale with a known lack of profitability in this time, right? It's not like we're going to scale spend and you're going to see ROAS increase. This time of year is typically people are holding on to their dollars, right? So that's a big part of it too, is really measuring the risk tolerance.
And so practically, what does that look like? Like, do you have a specific example you can share with us of what those conversations are looking like now and what a little bit of that analysis is looking like now?
Yeah, so usually I'll start with information from the client. So like I'll ask them, what did you have in mind to spend for Black Friday? Because most businesses will have an idea of what they wanted to spend, and I will literally often just take that and then just move the time period of when I'm spending it. So instead of their initial idea was, oh, on Black Friday I want to spend this. I'm like, okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to take that and we're going to stretch it out. And then I'll do a little bit of data analysis to see if it's worth bumping up or bumping down. And what I'll typically do is look at last year's data and the previous year's data and the previous period's data, like the current data, and I'll more or less evaluate what our current return on ad spend is and compare it to what the benchmark return on ad spend profitability line is. So this requires a little bit of math that's based off of the business numbers, right? What their profit margins are, what, yeah, and evaluating just what their baseline of profitability is. And the bigger the wiggle room is there, the more we can kind of scale. If they're really close to their profitability benchmarks, that's when you can't really spend all that much because yeah, the bigger the wiggle room, the more we can scale. And then the last thing I like to really consider is customer lifetime value. So during a sale, you don't really make great return on ad spend because the profit margin's taking a hit. So we're really banking on repeat customers. So if they have a good customer lifetime value, we can scale a little bit more. If it's one of those items that only is purchased once out of in 2 or 3 years, we probably shouldn't scale all that much. So that's a huge consideration factor, is calculating the cost to acquire a new customer and considering LTV.
It's a great point. And I find, especially with some of the smaller clients I work with, even though I am a Google Ads coach and they're coming to me for help with Google Ads, one of my number one questions I ask is, what does your email marketing look like? And
Ah,
if they kind of look at me
yes.
blankly, I'm like, fine, but email market, it's not the only way to drive lifetime value. But like after the first purchase, how do you follow up with people? How do you get the second purchase? How do you get the third purchase? If there's no strategy in place there, I'm not going to try to help you do it. I stay in my lane. It's not my specialty. But I will say, like, you should look into getting some basic email sequences in place, because doing so will enable us to loosen up the ROAS a bit on Google Ads, because we'll feel more confident the repeat is coming later. So I find that that's a common, I'm like often suggesting, I'm like, oh, have you looked into, like landing page optimization, this and that, like maybe that'll help, to make the Google Ads work better, because Google Ads is just one touch point. It brings in new people. But to your point, that's only going to be worthwhile if those sale buyers, come back again and again.
100%. And email is such like the sleeper of digital marketing. I for some reason I find it's got this connotation of being old school, but email is still one of the kings, I find, or queens, however you want to look at it. But yeah, it
Thank you.
is, yeah, it is like vital. And whenever I have a client that, yeah, doesn't have a strong email campaign, I push back and say, that's your priority. That should be one of your priorities, because a great Google Ads campaign cannot solve a broken digital marketing mix, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, 100% support that.
My pet peeve, though, is when email marketers are like, oh, the ROI on email marketing is like
Yeah.
36x and it's the most profitable channel. And I'm like, yeah, but how did they get there? How
Yeah,
did they get on your email list? You know what I mean?
Klaviyo has a tendency to really inflate their numbers, but hey, Google does too. Let's be honest.
Everyone
Every
does.
platform has a little
Everyone does.
bit of a,
And
and
actually, even
that's
in my
actually,
own business,
yeah.
I have, as a solo business owner, iterated many times over. Like from the moment I went viral on TikTok in 2021, I was like, I need an email list. Okay, I have an email now. And it's been through 50 iterations. But the current
Mm,
iteration has been around for the year, where I share real life Google Ads case study every other week on my email newsletter.
mm.
And it's so helpful for my business as well, because in every issue I'm sharing, like, here's a real client of mine and what their problem was and how we solved it. And so it means every single issue I send out to my 8,000 plus subscribers, I get at least one email back of someone who's like, oh,
Mm,
that's exactly my issue. Can you help me solve it
wow.
too? And I'm like, yeah, that's why I structured it this way.
Yeah.
So it's this dual benefit of like, as someone who coaches and teaches, my newsletter coaches and teaches and helps with that. But then
Mm,
also I'm sharing all these different stories. And so I'm able to, increase my lifetime value and get my customers in from it as
yeah.
well. So both as a Google Ads practitioner and as a business owner, I will say great things about email marketing. But of course, people don't just wake up one day and subscribe to your emails. They have to find it somehow, whether that's through ads or organic or something else.
It's kind of interesting also to get that feedback from, because someone can email you back and give you that piece of feedback, having that direct end to consumer communication. Like, I'm sure you get a lot of like insight just from that, right? Seeing what resonates, what messaging kind of even just got yeah, connection. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely. Seeing what sort of resonates with people. So I mean, I love getting to hear directly from people consuming my content. I'm sure you love that as well when people
Hmm.
comment on your LinkedIn post or comment on the YouTube video or DM, and it's like really exciting and interesting just to see what resonates with folks, and also to show the gaps of like, I feel like I have said 100 times, like, when you have a search campaign, you don't want to be advertising on the display network. But still, every time I say that, someone's like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. That's so helpful. And so, like, as someone
Hmm.
who creates content, that kind of feedback as well. It's like, just because I've said it 100 times, it doesn't mean that person who needs to
Yeah.
hear it today, you know, has heard the
Right.
message.
Or even like as someone who like as a listener of a lot of content creators, there will be sometimes something that I've heard 100 times, but we listen to so much that I might have forgotten it or it didn't apply to my use case at that time. So I personally never get exhausted at listening to what might be deemed like basic information that I know, because it's still a great reminder in real time. Like, oh, you know what? Like, yeah, that one thing that you mentioned that I've heard before, I'm making the connections in real time as I'm listening to it to a current use case. And I personally never think that anybody who is in the space for a long time should stop listening to content in any form, because you never know when something like really will resonate with you because of your current client use case, right? So yeah, I think that's a really good point to just keep, as a then a creator, to not be shy about keep repeating the stuff that you might think has been heard before.
Yeah, that's why I love listening to you. I love listening to Sarah Steeman. I love
Yes.
Andrew Loke's videos he's been doing this
Yeah.
year are great. When we release this as an episode, I will put all those links in the episode description to check all them
Marketing
out.
o'clock too. That's one of my
Marketing O'Clock.
favorites now.
Welcome, you are
They're
listening
great.
to Marketing O'Clock's Day
Oh
2.
yeah.
See, it's Monday today. I listened this
I
morning.
I belt that tune like every morning. I'm driving my son to daycare, and that's like my tune on my way home.
Me too. I do it. I drop off my son at my parents' house because he goes there instead of daycare on Mondays. And then I drop off my daughter at school. And then the moment she gets out of the car, I turn on Marketing O'Clock. And so as I'm like driving my
Yes.
car back to park at my parents, I get through like half the episode and
Yes.
then switch over to headphones. And then like by the
Yeah.
time I got to the office, I got the full thing. So when the Marketing O'Clock song comes on, I am also alone in my car and I'm also belting it out.
I am waiting for at a conference for that to be a track for the karaoke situations.
You need
I
to
think the
do
last time
it.
I was at the conference in San Diego, HeroConf, they had a karaoke thing. I wasn't at the karaoke thing, but I thought this is an opportunity to plug Marketing O'Clock, and everyone is going to do it. I would do
You're
it.
onto something here. You're onto
Oh yeah,
something
I
here.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you been looking at conferences for 2026 or how are you sort of
Uh,
thinking about that?
yeah, I haven't really been on the conference. I've been moving a lot, to be honest. I moved from the States and moved to Canada. I'm moving to Germany soon, so it's not on my radar. But I am joining the virtual. There's a conference coming up. I think this week actually.
Next
It's
next?
the Yes, that's it. I'm gonna
Yeah,
join the
yeah.
virtual.
Tomorrow, well, we're
Yeah.
recording this on November 17th,
Mhm.
2025. So tomorrow, the 18th and 19th is SMX Next. Yeah, free
Mhm.
online. I've
Mhm.
pre-recorded my session, so I'm speaking tomorrow, but the Q&A is live. So that's how they sort of
Right.
do it with SMX Next is like the
Yeah.
talks are pre-recorded, but then the speakers come for live Q&A the day of. So Brad Geddes is moderating my live Q&A, which
Oh,
is
cool.
fun tomorrow.
That's
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I
He
can't
and
wait
I
to
both
tune in.
teach. Pardon?
I can't wait to tune in. That's gonna be great.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, he and I both teach the two SMX master classes. He teaches advanced Google Ads, and then I teach Google Ads beyond search. So anyway, that'll be fun tomorrow. But yeah,
Cool.
yeah,
I
I
wanted to
know.
circle back to something. I wanted to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Circling back to our point about email and email taking all the attribution or Google taking all the attribution. I'm a pretty big proponent of third party attribution softwares for clients that advertise on a number of different channels. And I've got a number of different takes on different softwares because I've tried a lot of them and I have some preferential ones. But I wanted to hear your take on if you use third party softwares for tracking attribution or what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, so I would say a few years ago, I felt like every Shopify business owner was using Triple Whale. That was the one I
Hmm.
saw a ton of. I
Hmm.
haven't seen it as much recently, but I think that's more a function of my changing client base than anything about the
Right.
market. A lot more
Hmm.
of my clients now are in-house marketers and agencies, and the small business owners I do have tend to be like the really small ones.
Hmm.
So nothing specific there. In terms of tracking, I just started a brand deal today with Stape. I posted about them on LinkedIn.
Oh,
So they're a
cool.
server-side tracking tool.
Yeah, I've
And that was an
heard good things
interesting
about
one.
them.
Yeah, I only do brand deals with companies who like I'm already familiar with them. So I have a
Mm,
coaching client who uses Stape and has seen great results. When they reached out, I was like, oh, something I actually use. Yeah, we can do a deal about that.
yeah.
So that's something I don't personally have server-side tracking installed on my website yet because I don't advertise. But if I were
Mhm.
to advertise, that's something I would look into. I'm curious to hear your take. Like, what sort of tools are you finding useful?
Yeah, so even before going to the tools, I think it's helpful for every business to monitor their data holistically, right? If you push Google Ads or you push Meta, I'm less concerned about the attribution that's attributed to that channel, more about how did it lift the overall business numbers, especially in like an ecom percentage, in an ecom context. I like to see how did your bank account increase when either channel gets pushed, right? So I like to look at things holistically and comparing things over time. So if you pushed one channel, don't touch the other ones and just see, okay, in a month, did the top line grow? So this can be done manually. I have some clients who are literally, it's just, I open up Shopify, I input the numbers into a spreadsheet. I open up Google. I take those numbers. I pull the numbers from all the channels I have access to. But in terms of using platforms to pull it, Northbeam has been one of my favorites, though it's expensive. It's like
Okay.
$3 grand a month to start, which is for only a certain client type. So I don't recommend that to everybody, but it is really a good platform. I've been using AdBeacon recently, much more affordable. A whole suite of other tools that allows you to kind of slice and dice your products and see just all kinds of really interesting views of your data. But yeah, I find sometimes just doing it manually can work too. And I'll be honest, I do like Optimizer for not that they necessarily do that, but it can be a platform where your MCC has all of your accounts in them from Microsoft to Google. So I'll often pull the data from Optimizer in one view and put it in a spreadsheet. So I kind of like to mix and match what I use for different clients, but I think it's at the very least important to recognize its importance, and every business can find their mix on what works for them. There's no one platform that rules them all. But I will say one thing: be careful of view-based attribution. There's a lot of view modeling that's done similar to what Facebook does, where it steals a lot of its attribution because it says, oh, someone who converted, let's say, organically saw our ad, so we take attribution. A lot of these platforms basically will replicate that with view-based modeling. That's what Triple Whale does. That's why Triple Whale can often make certain platforms look really good. Northbeam has a toggle where you can do view-based or just click-based. That's what I like about it.
Hmm.
And then AdBeacon is just click-based. So I would just say be careful of view-based attribution when making this kind of analysis because it can be misleading.
It's true, but it's also a good reminder that, like, you know, the numbers you see in Google Ads, in Google Analytics, in Shopify, even like none of them are right. You know, like
Yes.
everything's a little bit wrong. They're just all a little bit wrong in different ways. And so I love what you said about just looking outside the platform because it's so true. Like there's this one business I work with, a business owner, she's my client for years, and she has a few different like categories of products she sells, and there's one category of product that just never did well on standard shop. We could just never make it work, you know?
Mm.
And she listened to one of my podcast episodes where I talked about PMAX, and she was like, Jyll, should we try PMAX for this? And I was like, I don't know. I don't think so. PMAX. And she was the one who was like, could we give it a try? And I was like, sure. So we give PMAX a try just for these few SKUs that she wasn't advertising anywhere else. It was over the summer. She was doing no other marketing, no email, no nothing. And for the first month, ROAS in Google Ads for that PMAX campaign was terrible. I think it was like 0.2 or 0.3.
Mm.
However, in Shopify and in Google Analytics, she had record-breaking sales of those
Wow.
products. It was like,
Wow.
I have the numbers, like twice as many or 3 times as many sales of those products as the previous month and the same time last year. And literally nothing had changed except running PMAX. And so we ran PMAX another month because we were like, okay, something's obviously happening here. And again, in platform ROAS, terrible. It said it only had like 2 purchases, but real life in her business, she saw a huge spike in just those SKUs that wasn't replicated anywhere else. And it's interesting. Then in month 3, the ROAS was really good on PMAX, which it was like 2.5. And then month 4, again, terrible ROAS in PMAX, but the products are still selling really well. And so it's like, I can't explain why,
Mm-hmm.
but we know it's working. And so she's still spending on it. And so I share that story to say, like, yeah, just looking at Google Ads, you know, is not enough to tell you what's really going on in your business. Your bank account, as you said, Joey, is like really what matters at the end of the day. It's such a great point.
Yeah, and one of the things that I'll do is once you've reached a bit of like a baseline where you've tried that new campaign, for example, you see the results in Google Ads, so you see the results in the business. Then what I'll do is I'll start benchmarking the metrics that we are seeing, right? So for example, let's say zero 0.9 in 0.9 ROAS in Google Ads, you know, is getting you that return in the business. 0.9 kind of becomes your baseline. Then if it drops to 0.2, you know, okay, something shifted, right? So I find you can use this theory also if you are using a third-party attribution software that's showing all your channels, where even if it's 50% right, if it's 50% right all the time, you can still use it to measure changes, right? So when you look at it this way, Facebook, for example, will always show 0.5 ROAS on click-based, right? But you know, if it's 0.5 ROAS consistently and overall the business is profitable, you'll know that if you drop to 0.2, okay, something changed. Let's look into that, right? So I like to use it in that like benchmark context.
Yeah. We are recording this live right now. We're actually getting some questions from folks who are watching this live.
Ooh,
So if you are watching this live
cool.
on YouTube or LinkedIn, drop a comment. We'll answer it for you. And let's get to some of these live questions. So user in bed during COVID, I hope that's an out-of-date username, says, new nonprofits with access to Google ad grants. What are we supposed to be looking for and what can we do to grow? So Joey, do you work with ad grants at all?
I haven't. I haven't used
No
ad
worries.
grants before, so
Yeah, I will say I have used them before. When I worked at Google, they had like a team of us who would like volunteer to help nonprofits with ad grants. But for your ad grants questions to this user or anyone else, I recommend looking up Jason King. He is like the pro of all things ad grants. Ad grants has this sort of verified partner thing. There's only a few in the whole world, and he's one of them. So for your ad grants questions, I don't trust myself to not give outdated information. So I will say look up Jason King on LinkedIn, and he shares great ad grants info. We have another question. Your thoughts on what type of pages Google Ads should link to? Is it just a single landing page, like I heard from a course, or to your website about page or a sales page? What's your opinion on this? Because there's no right or wrong answer. What's your opinion, Joey?
Oh, this is juicy. I love answering this question because I get it a lot. So, and I'm very like bullish on this. I personally do not like landing pages, pages that are off of the website that are designed to convert. And my reason for that is when someone's clicking on an ad and going to your business, this is the moment where they need to build trust in your business. So if you're a service-based business, for example, and you send someone to a page that doesn't have any like navigation to the rest of your business for them to vet you, to trust you coming into their home, like that's a poor user experience. The goal should not necessarily be to just convert them. The goal should be to gain their trust so you can hopefully convert them. And I feel like the whole squeeze page thing, like these landing pages that are designed to squeeze them into a conversion, were used in a different context that PPCers have adopted to use wrong, right? And I think their main purpose was to be used for lead magnets. A lead magnet is when you are using ads, usually display or video, to offer a valuable piece of content to somebody who doesn't even know who you are. They're not searching for you. It's, oh, you're interested in real estate. Here are the top 10 things to consider. Download this PDF to get the answers. And then they go into your drip campaign. And that's a good use for a squeeze page, right? But for a low funnel PPC campaign, I say send them to the website, send them to a page that is consistent with the service or product you're offering. Obviously, don't just send everybody to the homepage, but send somebody to a page that then they can navigate around the website and build trust in the business overall. That's my take.
I agree with you. So I'm going to yes and. Yes and. Some of the mistakes I see around that are, let's say you're an e-commerce business. You can send people straight to the product page. Like an example, last week I had a coaching client who sells cat litter. So when people are searching for that, they land straight on the product page. Better than nothing, right? Better than the homepage. But the issue as well is that product page, it's like the standard Shopify product page, it doesn't have some of the things you might want on it, like, social proof at the top or a bit of an explanation. It's just like image, product, price, go. So, so again, better that than just the homepage, I think, but it could be helpful to have another page designed for like cold traffic, people who are just landing there. They do want to buy because it's a low funnel search, but like, we got to warm them up a bit, we got to give them a little intro. I guess another mistake I see oftentimes, I work with a lot of agencies who specialize in home services clients, roofers, landscapers, plumbers, electricians. And so often those business owners don't have a website or have a terrible website. And so the agency's like, well, in order to be successful, I have to build this separate landing page thing because I can't do anything with the main landing page. And so it's like, yes, but then the problems arise that you mentioned, Joey. It's like if someone wants to see, like, is this plumber legit? And it's just a single page that doesn't navigate to anything else, it kind of hurts them in that regard. So the advice I often give to some of my agency clients who fall into that scenario is like, before taking on a client or like in the onboarding process, that like, a website that you are able to create new pages on, add conversion tracking to, should be part of the scope of work. And if a client can't let you do that, then you shouldn't work with them as a client, because then you can't be successful enough for them and they can't be successful. Yeah. So those are like two watch outs, I would say, for e-com and for lead gen.
I think it's a really good point as well for the sites that aren't great, and making like a temporary solution to build a page that you believe can convert while the website maybe gets worked on. But yeah, I definitely see a lot of times I'll get clients that will come from agencies who suggested, oh, we needed to build a landing page so we can track conversions, so they can control the conversion funnel. And that I find is true in the sense that you do get to control 100% of the conversions, but you could also just do that from the website. So I find it's a bit of an excuse they use to bill you for building a page, because usually it will still be something they charge for. So but I agree with you.
Yeah, because
sometimes,
like if you don't have conversion tracking, then Google Ads can't be successful. Of course, there are fringe cases, but for most people, if you don't have conversion tracking, then Google Ads can't be successful no matter what.
Yeah.
Are there other like, as a freelancer, you only have so much bandwidth, so you need to control a little, like the clients are willing to take on. So are there any kind of red flags or situations where you've not taken on a client or had to fire a client just, I guess, for whatever reason? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I have a pretty like lean portfolio list. Like I don't outsource my work. So I'm very selective on who I work with, because I only can work with so many clients at a time. Right. And I think the biggest thing for me is just communication styles and expectations, right? If a client has, expects a 20x ROAS on Google Ads, and through my explanation of what to expect doesn't resonate with them, I'll be like, I don't think this is going to work. Or if there's someone who wants utmost control of the account, emailing me every day, it's like, I like to set boundaries when I take on a client for the best interest of the account, right? We can't have two cooks in the kitchen. We can't have hyper control. There's got to be a level of trust. So there's a lot that goes into that. And I have fired clients before, and I am quite selective. So in short, yeah.
Yeah, you have
No.
to be. I mean, I have a post going live later this week on LinkedIn, but again, it's something I've said many times before, is that like the agencies that get fired don't get fired because of poor Google Ads results. They get fired because of poor communication and expectation management. And so like there could be an agency who like actually is terrible at managing Google Ads, but is very responsive and communicative and whatever, and will be given like a ton of chances by, you know what I mean? And then there are other ones I see who like, they're so good at Google Ads and know exactly what they're doing. The account is doing amazingly well objectively, but the client doesn't feel like it's doing well. You know, they don't feel like the agencies where they don't feel like, for example, you know, some clients will just like check the change history to see what's happening.
Yeah.
And it's like, if a campaign is doing really well, we don't want to change it. It doesn't mean they're not doing anything. You're monitoring and all kinds of stuff, but like a client who's going to monitor change history to know if they're getting their money's worth is not the right client for a lot of folks, you know? So it's really interesting how feelings can matter more than facts in those circumstances. And I know that's an unpopular opinion, but something I see, because again, I work with a lot of clients who fired agencies. I work with a lot of agencies who are worried about getting fired or want to keep, and it's just, yeah, the feelings tend to override the facts a lot. So the communication is so, so, so key.
That's such a great way to put it. Comparing the feelings and the facts and considering both kind of equally when addressing client management. That's not all about a performance. Yeah, I fully agree.
It reminds me, actually, there was a client I work with who had what I thought was a really great month because ROAS was higher than it had ever been, like above, you know, it ever been. I was like, oh my gosh, this month's been amazing. And then she was like, what do you mean this month was terrible? And so in my mind, we had been working for months to try to improve ROAS, and we had, so it was a success. But in her mind, that was a month where she usually saw a lot more revenue, and revenue was down by like 20%. And so
But
again,
ROAS was up.
ROAS was up, which makes
Right.
sense, right? Like the most profitable pool of people is smaller, and as you expand. So we had been working on improving ROAS and getting there. But in her mind, what she had wanted to see was more revenue, and we had not been doing things to achieve that. So again, it's just this other example of like, you know, we're looking at the exact same data, opposite takeaways, because how we defined working well was completely different. And so then I was like, oh, well, if working well to you means more revenue, then let's change some of what we've to accomplish that. And she's like, okay, yeah, no, I know I didn't say that, but actually the goal is great. Let's do that. So it's really interesting how people think that numbers and data means that it's set in stone and fat. And it's like, no, it's how people feel about those facts completely changes their interpretation of those facts.
And that's such an interesting point as well. And I think it's an important one to bring up with clients often, is that having that clear communication on what KPI matters at what time of year. Because one things I find is true, you can only have one KPI to hold true. You can't say, I want more revenue and I want a higher ROAS. There's got to be one primary objective, and explaining the relationship between ROAS and conversion value, for example, and how it's often a bit of a teeter-totter, and aligning on that like goal setting. And I find breaking it down as we can only have one goal, and let's pick what it is. Is it revenue? Is it return on ad spend? Is it cost per conversion? Let's pick one. The other ones are secondary to see what relationship it has to the rest of our account, but one goal.
Because
that's a great
you can
example
only
you
have
used
one
that
bid
shows that.
strategy. Yeah,
What's that?
like literally your bid strategy is how you tell Google your goal, not your campaign goal when setting up. That's useless. No, like your bid strategy is how you tell Google your goal. And a lot of people don't think about it that way. So it's like you can have two campaigns with identical keywords and identical everything. But if one is set to maximize conversions and one is set to target CPA, you could end up serving on totally different queries and have totally different CPCs and totally different CTRs. And even like with brand bidding, you know, I'm someone who advocates for target-based smart bidding in brand campaigns. I know I'll be curious to hear what camp you're in for that, by which target CPA or target ROAS, even for branded search. And it's because I've seen a branded search campaign on manual CPC not doing well, because manual CPC tells Google, my goal is cheap clicks. And while your brand CPCs should be cheap, like that leads it to match two different kinds of queries with close various, versus switching a brand campaign to target ROAS of 500% tells Google, like, my goal is to have a return on my investment of 5. And then it completely changes the queries you're advertising on because of it's optimized for something different. I'm curious, what camp are you sort of in for? I know it depends, but for brand
Yeah.
campaigns, where do you like to
No,
sit?
but I also just wanted to mention
Yeah,
too, just to relate to that example you gave,
yeah,
where when you make that switch to target return on ad spend, the client might be like, "Oh, my CPC went through the roof." It's like, yeah, but we have one primary objective, and it's not CPC, right? I don't care if CPC goes up if the return is this. Um, but yeah, so back to your question, what
yeah.
camp I'm in for branded search campaigns? To be honest, I am in the manual camp, because my opinion of it is, if you were to switch to target return ad spend, what's target return ad spend really doing? It's looking at the um, search intent between keywords and search queries. But in a brand campaign, exact match keywords, all of the intent is relatively the same. It's all people who are bottom of the funnel looking for your brand. Maybe the only intent that would be different is people looking for reviews versus the brand name. So, in my opinion, for brand campaigns, I'm all about volume and bringing that CPC down. But I never really even report the return on ad spend in a brand campaign, because my goal for a brand is just brand protection, top of the SERP domination, and smallest budget possible, meaning most clicks for the budget that we have for it. So that's our goal. So we can stick to it. So the client we don't really care if the ROAS fluctuates. It's just how many clicks can we get on that controlled search intent for the budget we want to allocate to it.
Yeah, I tend to prefer smart bidding now. Well, because I've seen too many brand campaigns not working properly on manual
Interesting.
CPC. And again, I'm not saying this is what I love about Google Ads. There's so many different
Yeah,
ways to manage
absolutely.
Google Ads, but I've seen, especially I guess in a situation where the brand name is kind of generic-ish. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
100%.
So I don't want to give the specific example way I'm thinking of, but I don't know. Okay, there's some cold. What? There's some cold
Yeah,
medicine
but
here that
if
apparently was holding up something. But if your company is called like Best Cold Medicine, you know what I mean? And that's your brand
mm-hmm.
name, then like, oh, is that a brand? Is that a not? So that's a place where, and then another one
Yeah,
is because of close variants and because of hidden search terms, if people are searching for like, your brand name login, your brand name coupon, your brand name reviews, all these
reviews.
versus
Mm-hmm.
whatever, like you don't always even see it because it would be
Mm-hmm.
so low volume because it's in other search terms. So I prefer to use target CPA or target ROAS, and then I monitor impression share to see how we're doing. But again, there's no one right way to do Google Ads.
100% agree. And I also have heard, I don't know if this is true, but I've heard that when you do set brand to a smart bidding strategy, it does lend the algorithm a bit more data for the smart bidding in general on your account, because it kind of goes into this pool of used data in smart bidding. Again, I don't know if that's true. I just heard that once, and I thought, okay, that's kind of interesting. It will, yeah, maybe test some more things for the algorithm, and it will just be a bit more algo focused, which then is used in the account in other areas. Again, I don't know if that's true, but
I don't
I had
think
heard
I'm
that.
writing my second book about bidding right now, so I'm very deep in
Okay.
the weeds on this stuff right now. The key difference is, we know smart bidding takes more signals into account than manual or even maximize clicks. And one
Hmm.
of the biggest differences that I only learned when researching this book, even though I've been doing Google Ads for more than a decade, is that when you are bidding manually, you are bidding by keyword, right? Like you can change your bids by the keyword. And then that keyword has the same bid in every auction. Whereas smart bidding adjusts your bids according to the user's query.
Mm.
So, for example, the exact match keyword to your brand name could actually match to 100 different user queries, right? Different variations or misspellings or plurals or whatever. And so
Hmm.
with manual, they're all treated the same because whereas smart bidding is taking those different variations into account and adjusting bids accordingly, as well as device and audience and all the other million signals. So that's a different, but in terms of actual like data sharing, bidding learns at the bid strategy level. So like if a campaign has its own bid strategy, then that bidding learning is just there. If you're on a portfolio bid strategy, which I'm using more and more with clients these days, it's like if you have multiple campaigns and you give them a shared budget and a shared bid strategy, you've effectively made them one campaign without having to do a reorganization. But there's also learning that happens at the conversion action level. So if you have like a form fill conversion action and a phone call conversion action, and you're getting conversions to multiple campaigns, that learning all lives within that action. So yeah, it's really confusing and really muddy.
And that's why we have these conversations, right?
That's why we have these conversations. That's why I'm writing a whole book about bidding, because I'm like, this is a
Yeah, I
place we
love it.
got to explore more. Yeah.
So question for you then, when you run a brand campaign with smart bidding, do you go broad match or do
I
you
have
stick to exact
seen
match?
it. I won't choose that generally, but I have seen that usually against someone who, I'm not even just going to say a business owner. If you're someone who's learning Google Ads today from Google, you're going to only use broad match. Like that's how newer practitioners, because that's all they've ever learned. So what's interesting, if you do broad match brand on manual CPC, it's not going to be a brand campaign. But if you do broad match on target-based bidding, then after learning, a couple of you'll look at your search terms report and it's going to be all brand. So I'm not saying
Yeah,
I advocate for that per se, but I've
but you've
seen
seen
that.
it
I've
work?
even seen there was one situation for a client where they had like a branded search campaign and they had PMAX, and PMAX was only doing brand. And for whatever reason, like the CPCs and the PMAX were way lower, and the conversion rate there was like way high. Like PMAX was just doing a better job on the brand than search was. And so I was like, then let PMAX do it. Let's turn off the
Yeah.
search and have this be a PMAX branded campaign. And by setting the ROAS really high, such that only low funnel remarketing or brand could go through here, it's going to do that. And so again, the takeaway is not everyone go let PMAX be your brand campaign, but just like that was my recommendation there, because that's what was working better for that client. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And now we have brand inclusions rolling out to
Right.
more campaign types. I saw shopping has brand. So if you want to do like branded shopping, which again, the workaround for branded shopping was always setting a really high ROAS or having a negative keyword script. Now it's like,
Yes.
you can do brand inclusion, which will get you 80% of the way there, assuming you don't have a very generic brand name.
Right. And I have seen success in accounts by setting a branded standard shopping campaign and then a non-branded standard shopping campaign for those accounts that just get a lot of branded traffic in their shopping campaign. Shopping typically I find does a pretty good job of sticking to cold traffic, but in some cases it's just volatile. So I have seen that separation work pretty well. But
And so
it can be.
because the brand inclusion is so new, how would you typically create? Because for folks who don't, there's no keywords in shopping. It's
Yeah.
like PMAX in that you don't pick your searches and you don't create your ads. It comes from your feed. So how do you jerry
Well,
rig
you actually,
branded
yeah,
shopping?
you said it exactly the way that I do it.
Okay.
I do a negative keyword script. I like to use Shaba.io. It's a free script that's really user friendly. The maker of it is really interactive on LinkedIn to ask questions. So I'll do that. And what that does is you basically give the script your brand name, and it will automatically add a negative keyword for any click or impression, if you want, that doesn't match what you set it to. Now, this can get a little wild where sometimes you'll get like thousands of negatives a day and you have to create new negative keyword lists all the time. But that paired with a really high TROAS, it does the trick. And after a few days or weeks, it becomes a branded campaign.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I hate the negative keyword script. I'm just like, oh, but
Only
I
if I
think
use it.
I think that the target ROAS alone would do it. Like I would, you know what I mean? I would have to
Yeah.
learn either way,
Mhm.
but if you set your ROAS high enough, then it learns that's the way to
And
do
you're
it.
probably right. Yeah, I could be over engineering it a
But
little
there's the
bit.
learning part, right? And so
Yeah.
that's, I get it.
Mhm.
At a smaller budget, I can see it making sense. But I do
Mhm.
think, especially nowadays, that a lot of folks are too liberal with negatives. And again, I know that's not such a popular opinion, but Andrew Loke really
Mhm.
influenced my thinking on this as well. It's like, well, if you have the conversion tracking and if you have the right smart bidding strategy, then you actually don't need negative keywords because it will learn what converts for you and what doesn't. And like there's a certain search term that 90% of the time is not relevant to you, but if the user is this, and like there's a certain circumstance where it could work and we want to keep it there. So I'm not saying no negatives ever, but I used to advise people like check your search terms report weekly and add negatives. And now I'm sort of like, check it. But like if you're finding you're having to negative out at least 10% of your search terms, there's a core problem you need to fix first. Like negatives aren't the
Yes.
solution. I don't know. What's your, feel free to disagree with me, by the way.
No, I am 100% in that game plan. I think our like day-to-day workflow has gravitated away from like hyper search term monitoring where I find it usually is just a little bit of heavy lifting at the very beginning. When you first launch a campaign, it's about watching it to make sure it's not too egregious, but like you said, often if you are seeing a problem, it's because your product feed is not optimized or you've got the wrong mix of keywords. But yeah, I am not adding negatives very often anymore, to be honest. It's really just pruning at the very beginning.
Yeah. And something that I've done with a few clients now is actually just like zeroing out the negatives. Like, especially if they've been managing the account for a really long time, or if the account changes hands, like go to the negative keywords and just remove them all,
Yeah.
And then look, there's probably 20 to 50 that you want to put in there, your sort of standard negative, the word free or porn
Yes.
related, that fine. But otherwise, yeah, just removing negatives alone can help an account really. Like I have one client, they sell like bath products and bath bombs and stuff, and they had negatived out all competitor names from their shopping campaigns. And I was like, try removing all your negatives. And so they did. And it turns out that competitor terms convert really well for them. And they just
There
never
you
thought
go.
they would because they're a small business. Or like if someone is searching Amazon bath bomb or Lush bath bomb, why would they choose little old us, But now those are like hugely, hugely beneficial for them because they let the data speak versus being like, well, that could never work. And maybe it wouldn't have worked, in which case, the smart bidding would have figured it out. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's kind of like that concept. I find nowadays our job it's about being less proactive and being more reactive, right? When you go into an account, you try to be proactive and think, oh, I know my audience. I know how this, it's like, no, let's let things be open and then react to the data. Let's not hyper segment. Let's not add in these negative keyword lists that it's like, no, be reactive instead of proactive. That said, I do find the one case when search terms can be a bit volatile is when you're in like a really big industry. Like I'll give you an example. I have a client that sells custom t-shirts, and t-shirts are a very, very, very big industry where no matter how much historical data we have, no matter how tight, yeah, no matter what, we are going to show up for wild search terms for things that they don't apply to them. So in this case, like in cases like that, you got to be a little bit more selective because I find the algorithm is just a little bit too overreaching because a glitter t-shirt, even though they don't sell glitter t-shirts, all the historical data, this is an account that's been around for like 15 years. The algorithm still doesn't know they don't do glitter t-shirts. So we have to negative glitter, so in case software, it's like, it's such a big pool that Google gets a little bit unsure about exactly where to match you. So I find in those cases, that's where I'm a bit tighter on my negatives.
Negatives or audiences, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You, like you said, you like to do like audience targeting, right? I'd like to hear more about that. I
Right
don't do as
there.
much
That's
of it
my
these
book
days.
about it, which I know you
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I
Oh, I
love,
know.
I
You were
love
the
your
one that
book.
told me that you hadn't bought my book because you didn't have time to read it. And I was like, I won't hold that against you, Joey.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's right. I have a new son, so I'm not really reading hardcover books, like hard copy books anymore. And I was waiting for the Audible
I
version. That's what
know.
we
I
got.
know.
Both of us.
I've received so many requests from the audiobook, which shocked me. Like I thought about releasing an audiobook and I was like, no one's going to want that. I've received so many requests for it. So for my second book, when it comes out, I will do an audiobook as well.
Mm.
And then when I do the second edition of this book, which will be in 2027, then I will do an audiobook for
Mhm.
that. But anyway, yeah, I
I have
love layering audiences with search and
yeah.
shopping. And actually a change since my book came out is when it came out, you couldn't exclude audiences from shopping. You could only like add them. And now you can, which is really great. So in the example you give, like, SaaS business, right? And there's a ton of searches just too generic. Sometimes instead of adding the negatives, it's like, well, what if we, limit ourselves to only target people who are in market for certain business services or people who work at a company of a certain size.
Mm.
And that way, if someone who works at a company of a certain size does this generic CRM software,
So
search.
will you do like an audience targeting and then open up other things like broad match with the audience targeting and smart bidding? Or yeah, what kind of layering are you doing typically? I know it
Yeah.
changes, but
Usually I start with no, so let's just say search, keep it simple. So usually I start with no audiences. And
Mhm.
you have your keywords and they're probably an exact match when you're sort of just getting started and you see the search terms come through and I will look towards the insights report. And this is actually new, like only within the last few months. You know how in a PMAX campaign, when you go to insights and scroll down, it gives you like audience insights?
Mhm.
See, all campaigns do that now in Google Ads.
Mhm.
So you can have a search campaign where you've added no audiences and observation or anything, but you go over to insights in the campaign or account wide and you scroll down and it'll show you which audiences your smart bidding is optimizing for. So you can already see what it's doing. And then based on what it's doing, you can see if that's right for you or not. So, for example, with one client, we went down to the audience insights, and audiences usually means like in market, affinity, but it'll also show demographics. And so they saw that age 65 plus was like a huge over index and converting really well. So then we were like, maybe we want to exclude age 18 to 24 and 25 to 34 just to focus more of our budget towards the people most likely to convert. Or maybe you'll see an audience insight that it's like, oh, one of your top audiences is like fashionistas. Okay. And you're like, yeah, we're a fashion product, but we're a luxury fashion product. So I don't want to exclude that, but maybe I'll exclude value shoppers because there's an affinity segment for luxury shoppers and one for value shoppers, which is euphemism for like cheap shoppers. And so, okay, maybe we will exclude someone who Google knows is a value shopper. So we don't serve ads to them, which leaves more budget for more higher value people. So it's just about, I always say it's kind of zigging and zagging. It's not like, oh, I sell CRM software, my keywords are CRM software, and I'm going to apply audience targeting for people in market for CRM software. Like that's not going to do anything. They're searching for CRM software. Obviously, they're market for that. It's more like I sell CRM software for large corporations. So if a small business owner is searching for CRM software, I don't want them to see my ad because I know they're going to click, but it's not going to convert. And smart bidding will eventually pick that up, but I just have a limited budget and want to do it. So you could can't exclude life events in search, but you could exclude if they work at a small company, for example, so that you're not wasting budget on that. So that's how to sort of think about layering audiences into search. It's like if you know something that the algorithm will eventually figure out, but you're just like, I already know this. I like to start by either excluding certain audiences, or if we're super limited or things are like super not going well, then to apply audiences on targeting. So like CRM software keywords and only targeting if Google knows this is a person who works at a large company. And that's it. And that's way more limiting than just excluding who you don't want, but sometimes that can be helpful in budget limited places or where CPCs are really high or yeah. Yeah, because
yeah, and
eventually you'll figure it out, but yeah.
yeah, I love your approach too. Kind of goes back to that concept of being reactive instead of proactive. You're using the data and trimming from there. I think that's fantastic. Now, will you also do this work in the base campaign that you started with, or will you create a new campaign to test certain things, or you just kind of create it all in the base campaign where the data is initially flowing in?
Yeah, the people who do this most tend to be smaller budgets because if you have a larger budget, like you have broad match and you have smart bidding and you don't need to do like it's doing this, for you.
Right.
Um, so because it's usually smaller budget, we'll usually do it within the same campaign, either excluding audiences or we can create separate ad groups that only target certain audiences. But we don't want to create, you don't want to take it too far where you have like tons of different ad groups with duplicative keywords and a slightly different audience. Like that's not going to be helpful to the algorithm either. So usually I'll say like observe, you can either literally add audiences on observation, but now I don't even advocate for that anymore because I'm like, well, the insights are going to tell you what it's doing anyway. And then either exclude audiences or maybe you have limit the whole thing to only certain audiences or like create a separate ad group where maybe there's certain keywords that are just your bread and butter, beautiful, anyone searching for them. And then there are other keywords that are like a little more broad, a little more generic. So you only want to advertise if the person's been to your website before, or if Google knows they work at a large company, or if Google knows they're a homeowner, or whatever the thing is that kind of helps to qualify them. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And on the heels of talking about using these audiences for bidding. So in this context, it works on Google because you're including or excluding. But we know there's a bit of a debate on if bid adjustments work in audiences in Google Ads, because they give us the column, but they explicitly say it doesn't do much. And I want to share an example of in Microsoft how it actually. So Microsoft, even Nava Hopkins recently said bid adjustments work with smart bidding. They tell the algorithm where to lean. And I have an example back related to the t-shirt company where we have two scenarios that we wanted to do bid adjustments with. One, they want to focus more on like businesses because they sell to direct to consumer custom t-shirts and also businesses custom t-shirts. We didn't necessarily want to just like segment and exclude and do all these things to say, okay, serve these ads to business owners and these ads to small order direct to consumer. So we just created the bid adjustments for people who I forget the exact language of it, but it's like employers of a certain size or people who applied for a certain business loan, or there are some business audiences. And it worked. That we saw the budget started gravitating more towards these audiences. Average order values went up. That's the big thing because businesses buy bigger orders. Individual people buy one t-shirt, and that's the delineation we need to create. And then the other thing was, this is still a problem with Google, is even though we're on smart bidding, the algorithm still spends the same amount on Saturday and Sunday, even though they make almost no sales on Saturday and Sunday. And it's not because the data is not coming through. It's just the purchaser behavior, for whatever reason, Saturday and Sunday is just brutal. So on Microsoft Ads, I made the Saturday and Sunday bid adjustment, and it's beautiful. On Saturday and Sunday, budget went down, ROAS went way up. And overall, it allowed us to spend our budget in more profitable areas. So I do love Microsoft for using smart bidding, but allowing to use bid adjustments. It is sweet.
Interesting. Actually, I recorded an interview with Nava that I have not edited and posted on YouTube yet, but it's coming very soon about Google Ads versus Microsoft Ads and some of those key differences, because I had heard there are some audience differences and I wanted to learn about that. But to clarify, no, bid adjustments with smart bidding do not work at all in Google Ads. The only one that does is, I'm doing this off the top of my head, so fact check me if you need to in the Google Ads Help Center, but I believe it is with target CPA bidding only and device bid adjustments only and minus 100% only. So practically what that means is if you want to exclude a device, you can do so with target CPA with the bid adjustment. I don't believe it works with target ROAS. I don't remember off the top of my head. But otherwise, no, the bid adjustments are just ignored. Oh, and sorry, what the bid adjustment does in target CPA isn't even excluding. Sorry, the minus 100% is maximize clicks. What it does in target CPA is if you put in a device bid adjustment, it adjusts your target CPA for that device. So again, why did Google do it this way? It's way too confusing. But basically, if you want to change your bid on mobile and your target CPA is $10 and you bid up 50% on mobile, then it would make your target CPA on mobile $15. Like it adjusts the CPA. Right. When Google decides to have solutions like these, that's when I'm like, no one who actually uses Google Ads made this decision.
Yeah. And I can confirm with Microsoft, it's like, yeah, I'm applying like a 30% bid adjustment here. Like I'm doing strategic bid adjustments, and even like, I'm telling you, it works. I did like a 50% negative bid adjustment on Saturday and an 80% negative bid adjustment on Sunday. And the spend was correlated to, we spent a little bit more on Saturday than Sunday. It was like, awesome.
There we go. Awesome. Awesome. Well, listen, Joey, we're coming up on an hour. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today in the zone. It's been such a pleasure to get to know you and learn from you face to face. And I'm looking forward to continuing to see you on LinkedIn and tuning into your podcast, the Indie PPC podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here. I love the conversation.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah, see ya.